order at 6 p.m. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Potato,
Here.
Brown, Cole,
Here.
Hochstetter,
She called in. She's not here tonight.
Newman,
Here.
Reed,
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
All right. So Deputy Mayor Hochstetter is absent tonight. Councilmember Stewart, would you please make a motion to excuse Deputy Mayor from tonight's meeting?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to excuse Deputy Mayor Hochstetter from tonight's council meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Newman. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Okay, so tonight we have a proposed amended agenda. We've been informed that Mr. Bridges will not be able to attend tonight's meeting to accept his reappointment to the Parks and Forestry Commission. This will be done at a meeting in April. So Councilmember Cole, could you please move to remove item 3A from new business?
Yes, I move to remove item 3A from new business. Item 3A is the appointment of the Forestry and Parks Commissioner.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second. I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Potato. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Will the clerk please read the consent agenda?
Item number 1, Main and Wood intersection improvements consultant agreement supplement. Item 2, Town Center utility and Warnoff project consultant agreement amendment. And item 3, approval of the minutes from the regular council meeting of March 6, 2023 and March 13, 2023 study session.
Thank you. Councilmember Newman.
I move to make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Potato. It's been moved and seconded. Would any council member wish to remove an item? All right, seeing none. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Okay. All right, now we have a public hearing. And this is on the 24th Street East right-of-way vacation. I will open the public hearing at 6:04 and call on City Attorney Andrea Marquez. There we go.
Thank you. Good evening, Council and Mayor. I am before you tonight to open a public hearing on the 24th Street East right-of-way vacation. As you may recall, the city is proposing to convey a 200-foot strip of property to the railroad to accommodate the White River Restoration Project. A portion of that 200 strip happens to be 24th Street East. So instead of surplusing it, the law requires that it be vacated before it can be conveyed to the railroad. So tonight's public hearing is for purposes of hearing from the public about the proposed right-of-way vacation.
Thank you. So do we have any public who would like to speak on the 24th Street East right-of-way vacation? Anybody here? Anybody online? All right. Seeing none, public hearing is closed at 6:05. Thank you. Okay, we have no unfinished business, and now we're on to public comment. The public is encouraged to submit their comments to the city clerk by email before tonight's meeting, so the clerk may read those emails received into the record. Michelle, were there any public comments received?
No, Mayor, there were not.
Is any public watching? I have a list here. Maria Jacobs. Would you like to speak, Pam? Could you read the rules for them? Michelle?
Yes, the public comment period is your opportunity to speak to the council and mayor on issues that are not on the agenda. If you're participating virtually, use the raise your hand feature on the phone. If you're participating in person, you have 3 minutes to comment. And as a reminder, this portion of the meeting is the council's opportunity to hear from the community and not a time to engage in debate. And the council will not be answering questions and may direct you to a staff member.
Thank you. Okay, Maria.
Marcia Jacobs, and I've been a resident in the city of Sumner for nearly 20 years. During that time, I've been both a homeowner and a renter. I'm here to talk with you tonight about how hard it is to be a renter in the city of Sumner these days. Sumner has too few rental units, which I know you know about thanks to your work in the May 2021 Housing Action Plan. But did you also know that Sumner has too few landlords? In addition to having too few landlords and too few rental units, what you have happening in your city is rent gouging. I'll give you an example. Our rent has increased 27% in the last 23 months. And we're not alone. Roughly 49% of the city of Sumner's population are renters. And a lot of us are experiencing rent gouging. Our landlord is Tarragon Property, and it is the landlord for many others in the city of Sumner. They own the Astor Townhomes, the apartments on Main, Riverside Park, Sumner Flats, and Washington Court. Because Tarragon controls the rents for so many units and thousands of tenants, it is rent gouging with impunity. I'll give you an example of what this kind of looks like to other tenants. A tenant in a Tarragon unit is a full-time working senior and who had to subsist off oatmeal, ramen, and peanut butter because of the rent increases decreased her food budget to that point. Another Tarragon renter who is a healthcare provider recently had to sell her car in order to make rent payments after the latest rent increase. Tarragon isn't alone in rent gouging. The problem is widespread, both here in our region and far beyond. Tarragon offers no reprieve from its rent gouging. It tells tenants that all rents and lease terms are dictated by the algorithm. It's a convenient way of imposing 20% a year or higher rent increases without inconvenient things like compassion. Rent gouging doesn't just hurt renters, it hurts entire communities. Why? Because it impacts the entire community and the entire economy. When renters are paying 50% or more of their income on rent, they can't go out to eat at our nice restaurants, shop in our stores, they can't have their kids join Little League. The impacts are far-reaching and they span the entire economy. One solution to the near monopoly control of tenants in Sumner is for the city council to please increase the number of landlords while you're also increasing the number of rental units in our city. When if landlords ever get to a place where they need to compete for tenants, rent gouging will decrease. Maybe then landlords like Tarragon and others will toss their algorithm overlords and rediscover compassion. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I messed up your name.
That's all.
All right, calling on Pam Osborne. Ooh, fancy.
You want a button?
Okay. Pam Osborne, I am a member of this community and have been here since 2011. And I live in Sumner on Mead Macomber. I'm here on behalf of the church that is down the street by 2 blocks. On April 8th, 1923, an historic event happened for our community. That building was dedicated as a church. It has stood on that corner quietly for the last 100 years. People walk past it, they admire the stained glass windows, but it is also a building that has cradled a lot of things that make Sumner who Sumner is. I cannot tell you how many weddings have happened in that building, how many memorial services have happened in that building. I cannot tell you how many children went to child clinics or vaccinations have been given in the last year and a half. But I do not know how many pies Rotary has baked in the kitchen in the basement for the Arts Festival, or how many pancakes the Men's Fellowship Group started when the Arts Festival started many years ago. I do know the school district has used it for concerts and Hispanic support. I do know that the church has been used for migrant workers. The food bank started there. It has cradled quietly a lot of things that make this town who it is. And so one of the pieces of its history is that the pastor who served there in the 1960s was also elected to the city council and served as a member of your council for as long as the bishop let him stay here. And I'm here with a little bit of 1920s sparkle to invite you to come to our celebration. On April 8th, 2023, the church is going to celebrate 100 years of brick and mortar and the gifts that that building has given to this community. We're going to have an open house from 11 until 2. And people are invited to come in, look at the stained glass windows, read through the history, look at the scrapbooks, ask questions, see the beautiful woodwork in that building. And then at 2:30 in the afternoon, which I know is a really weird time, but that's when it was done 100 years ago, we're going to have a little bit of a dedication and use some of the materials from the 1920s. So I especially invite the council and anyone else who's listening tonight or watching to put that on your calendar. I realize it's spring break. I realize it's the Saturday before Easter, but it is a historic moment in this life of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now we're moving on to ordinance number 2849, amending the 2023-2024 biennial budget. Councilmember Cole, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I move to approve ordinance number 2849, amending the 2023. All right, sorry about
Okay,
that.
there you go.
I move to approve ordinance number 2849, amending the 2023-2024 biennial budget.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Newman. Chief Financial Officer Cassandra Raymond, up to bat.
So before you is 2849. This is amending our 2023-2024 biennial budget. Looking at our budget, this was adopted on December 5th of 2022. We are in our first quarter. So as part of our regular management, we take a look at our budget on a quarterly basis. These quarterly budget amendments provide council a timely and transparent way to monitor and really kind of have how our budget is going and any changes in the needs. It's the opportunity for both staff and council to review changes, revisit and revise forecast and adjust for any programmatic changes. This particular amendment was reviewed in detail by our Finance and Personnel Committee, so I thank them for their patience with going through that line by line. And really, these amendments and bringing them to council on a quarterly basis are part of our overall financial management process. Our amendment at a glance for this first quarter, we have changes in several different funds, and I've broken it out by revenues, transfer ins and transfers out, and then expenditures. And with your patience, I'll just kind of touch on each of those different fund classifications quickly as to what this amendment provides for. In our general fund, we're asking for a little over $11,000. This is for Tyler Technologies PACE program. This is a training program that gives us discounted packages of both remote and on-site training for our financial software. We have new modules for both payroll and utility billing, as well as new staff. Those are some of our most important programs. It impacts our staff and our customers. And so we've been doing some advanced training for those. In our capital funds, we will be recognizing revenue and support for our property tax levy and an expense for Elm Street sidewalks. In our street capital fund, adding funding from our traffic impact fees for our Main and Wood intersection project. And in facilities, programming $400,000 for Ryan House improvements that's being provided by a grant from Pierce County. In our utility and enterprise fund, staff is requesting to carry over $50,000 for a project in our stormwater fund. These are funds that were unused at the end of 2022. And so staff is asking that those be reprogrammed in for 2023. In our cemetery operations, $7,000 for hazardous tree removal. This is a hazardous tree that was identified post-adoption of the 23-24 budget. And then a $1,500 expense for headstone lifter. This is a piece of equipment that will help in our day-to-day, but it was identified through that hazardous tree removal because there's going to be a whole lot of headstones that will need to be very, very gingerly moved and replaced. In Metro Animal Services, a $7,300 expense for a body cam package. This is a result of our labor negotiations. And then in our internal service funds, a $15,000 expense. Again, this is a carryover from 2021-22 for a net motion upgrade. That was just due to timing, wasn't able to be completed in the last biennium, even though it was programmed. So staff is asking to reprogram that into the current biennium. So it's a relatively short amendment that actually accomplishes a whole lot of stuff. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? None here. Any questions online? Not seeing any. Oh, Councilmember.
Sorry.
Newman.
Sorry, I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for always bringing things up as you learn of them and know about them, and for your diligence. And I've seen other cities where they cannot, like, they always have to be dubious about the information they get and stuff. And I'm just very appreciative of you as a city
Thank you.
for bringing things to the forefront. So thank you.
I appreciate that.
Her favorite job.
I like it.
All right, Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. Cassandra, very nice and short presentation, but well put together. I'm just wondering if you can help me understand and maybe give the public and other council members a chance to understand. I'm looking at the spreadsheet that was in the packet that you didn't have on your presentation, where it shows the cemetery operations fund. I totally understand 8,500. And it doesn't look like there's, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. Is that an enterprise fund where they reap the benefits of their services and they bring in revenue?
Yes, it is.
And is that indicated on that spreadsheet? Is it in the budget for that revenue, or does that just go into some other fund?
Revenue into the cemetery fund?
Yeah, like if I bought a headstone or had services there and I paid some money, where does that money go?
So any revenues that are receipted in for the cemetery go into actually 3 different funds. We have our cemetery operating fund, and then by code, we also have a separate cemetery development fund and a fiduciary fund. A percentage of property sales, so lot sales, go into all 3 funds by a percentage put out in the code. Service revenues, so for services, sale of items, things like that, those go into that Fund 410, the cemetery operating.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. I'm curious, were you done? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yep.
Okay. So when they sell services and property and headstones and all that stuff, and the money goes into these three funds that you described, they don't get to spend that then? Or do they just operate on a shoestring with the budget that the council approved?
So, for instance, even if the revenues come into the fund over our forecast, city council has still only authorized by appropriation a certain dollar amount. So to increase spending, regardless of what the revenues are coming in as, we still have to bring that to council approval. And that's a good checks and balance. It's to be sure that the revenues are treated really kind of separately. So the revenues are all receipted in, but regardless of how the revenues are coming in, the staff is still restricted to what council has appropriated for expenses.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Very well said. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anybody else? Not here. Anybody in the public? I don't see any. All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Newman,
Yes.
Potato,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're moving on to ordinance number 2847, franchise agreement with Fat Beam. This is the first reading. We will not be voting on it tonight. But Councilmember Stewart, would you like to make a motion?
I would love to make a motion, but I'm not sure what I'm making a motion for. The agenda item, do I just duplicate what it says on the
Sure.
bottom of the agenda item?
Go ahead.
Okay. I move to proceed with two readings as required by law of ordinance number 2487 and with subsequent approval.
Actually, that would be 2847.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Potato. And I will call on City Attorney Andrea.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you tonight is ordinance 2847. This ordinance is a non-exclusive franchise granted to Fat Beam, a competitive telecommunications company, to construct, install, operate, and maintain a fiber optic cable system within the public rights of way. So as a reminder, Fat Beam has an exclusive contract with the Sumner Bonnie Lake School District to upgrade the system to include dark fiber strands to each school in the district. The grantee, Fat Beam, is authorized to place its telecommunication facilities in, on, under, or across any public rights of way pursuant to this franchise. And reminder, a franchise is essentially the access agreement. Any actual construction or installation will require separate permits for each system and facility within the city. The term of the franchise being proposed is 10 years with renewal clauses. And franchise agreements by law require 2 readings. They're one of the only types of ordinances that requires this. Tonight is the first reading and an opportunity for council to ask questions and for you to hear from the public about the proposed agreement. And it will be back before you on April 3rd for a second reading and a vote. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
The image that is being shown on the screen is Fat Beam's proposal for how many strands they intend to supply to each school in the district.
Councilmember Potato.
So at our study session, we had information about the city being, going towards getting the fiber optic strands. And would any of this apply to us, or is this a totally separate agreement, I guess?
So I don't know if they will share any routes, but I
Okay.
will tell you that another tangential item to the fiber study is the dig once policy.
Mhm.
And the city could utilize this franchise. Anytime Fat Beam's installing conduit or digging into the public rights of way, the city would have the opportunity to also install conduit
Oh, okay,
at the same time.
good. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Councilmember Cole.
Okay, I read through the draft agreement and I was actually a little, at first, before I read through the agreement, I thought, oh, there's gonna be some competition out there for cable services, but the agreement was pretty clear. So I just wanted to confirm that is only telecommunications services. That's it.
That's right. And it's
Okay.
only for the school district.
And only for
Yeah.
the school district.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Anybody else? Anybody in the public? I don't see anybody. And we are not voting on this. So we will move on to reports. I will call on Councilmember Newman,
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Councilmember Cole.
Okay, so I do have a report from the Rainier Communications Commission. So a little bit wordy, but let me get through it. Okay, so we talked about some old business and mostly that was the ILA rewrite. We got a committee update. And they are currently discussing issues of contracting and the ability to contract with non-member agencies. But they're still working on a fee schedule for that. They also are working on ILA responsibilities, meaning what you get for your dues paying membership. They are working on the authority of the administrating member, in particular, they are talking about the budget and that it stays with the administrating member. They're discussing oversight of the board's RCC manager, public records issues that it will be coming this spring, and they are targeting June for the final redraft. In the way of new business, there were 2 items. One was they welcomed new reps from the city of Fife. And the other item was the RCC budget preparation. So we got an opportunity to review the budget calendar. We talked about moving our July meeting to sometime before June 15th so that the board members would have an opportunity to weigh in on the budget prior to its submission. We reviewed the revenue projections, learned that there were 3 revenue streams that the communication system has. And there was an overview of the strategic directions impacting the next 5 to 10 years. And that there was just talking about operating dollars, capital equipment. And in part of that capital equipment, there was discussion about in buying a new or replacing the mobile productions van. So the last item was the PCT update, and there was a few things here and there, but mostly to me, the most interesting part was the discussion about the mountain camera. They will have a new install a camera on the city county building. And it will feed on Mount Rainier and it'll be able to go live at any time. And one of the things they said was that if it blows, we'll be able to see it in real time. So anyway, that's my report.
That's
Thank you.
being prepared. Thank you. All right. Councilmember Stewart, do you have anything?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Councilmember Reed?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
All right. So I thought I did. Councilmember Potato. Councilmember Brown. Okay. We will have City Administrator Jason Wilson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a short report tonight. Coming up at next week's study session, we have 4 items for your pleasure. First is the Sound Transit parking garage update. Then we'll be discussing a couple more housing action plan priorities, including small subdivisions and pipe stem lot code amendments. Planning will also be here to talk about the 2024 comprehensive plan, including our public participation component. And lastly, we'll be discussing the cemetery building and the funding for that new building and kind of review with council how we got to where we are today. April 3rd at the regular council meeting, we'll have a proclamation for Animal Control Appreciation Week. You'll consider a resolution approving an interlocal agreement with the city of Sunnyside for jail services, as well as a resolution approving a revised interlocal agreement for our Metro Cities Tactical Response Team. We do have several commission appointments and reappointments, including one new appointment to the Arts Commission, 2 reappointments to the Arts Commission, a Parks and Forestry Commission reappointment, and then the second reading for the Fat Beam ordinance that you heard tonight, as well as an ordinance to amend Chapter 6 relating to Animal Control Code. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Off the hook? You, and I will say that the Daffodil Parade is coming up on April 1st. It'll run probably close to the same route, even though there's construction. And we have a brand new daffodil float in right now. They're working on it, which I think that is going to be the best thing we've ever done. It's really cool. We saw it today. And the Downtown Association will be having a music and a beer garden and a family-friendly area for families. So come on down and enjoy the Daffodil Parade. And with that, the meeting is adjourned at 6:32.